A targeted fuel subsidy announcement is likely to be on the cards for the revised budget 2023, according to a RHB Research economist. RHB Research Group Chief Economist and Head of Market Research, Dr. Sailesh K. Jha, in a report on Wednesday, said that revised budget 2023 shows limited possibility of significant tax policy reforms and reduction of other subsidies being announced. Even so, he says that the timing is appropriate for a reduction in fuel subsidies to be announced at the tabling on February 24th. According to Sailesh, Malaysia is likely to exhibit a resilient business cycle with core consumer price index inflation on a downward trajectory in the first half of 2023, albeit still at an elevated rate. In addition, commodity prices are expected to behave well in the first 6 months of 2023 as global growth slows. Sailesh adds that the government is also likely to highlight the targeted fuel subsidy policy to international rating agencies when the Ministry of Finance meets with them, likely during this coming summer. He says that this is the one policy adjustment which the government can put forward to the agencies to buy more time to announce and implement a significant fiscal consolidation path. From a monetary policy perspective, RHB maintains the view that the overnight policy rate will peak in the 3 to 3.5% range in 2023, with a balance of risk tilted towards a print of 3 to 3.25%. He explains that the uncertainty around its OPR forecast stem from the timing, quantum and scope of the targeted fuel price adjustment. He said Bank Negara believes that inflationary pressures are widening, although moderating, and are likely to remain elevated in the first half, even without a fuel subsidy adjustment. Sailesh says that core CPI inflation will remain sticky for several months at around 0.25 to 0.5% month on month if a modest targeted fuel price adjustment materializes in 2023. He says the most impacted sectors initially could be the transport and food and non-alcoholic beverage sectors within core CPI inflation. The second round effects could be felt in the services sector, with the restaurants and hotel sectors relatively more impacted. The Ministry of Economy is devising new strategies to ensure that the national food supply chain is adequate and reduce Malaysia's foreign food import dependency. Economic Affairs Minister Rafizi Ramli says his ministry will collaborate with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Living Costs, and the Finance Ministry on the new framework that is due to be announced soon. At the Consumer Price Index publication press conference, Rafizi said that in the long term, the government is also working towards ensuring adequate food supply in the country so that food price increases can be controlled. He adds that as the cost is quickly passed on to consumers, reducing input costs in food manufacturing will result in lower food prices. The government will also intervene on a timely basis to ensure that the input cost remains moderate in a volatile economic environment, according to Rafizi. Currently, Malaysia imports 60 to 70 billion ringgit worth of food from foreign countries to cater for domestic demand. Rafizi said that the government is looking at ways to boost domestic food production by inserting food producers and buyers into the food supply value chain. This is done to encourage producers to adopt a market orientation when production is done with the intention of meeting specific demands of buyers. Rafizi said the ministry is in the midst of launching a few pilot projects under the new strategies. Meanwhile, Agriculture and Food Security Minister Muhammad Sabu said that the supply of chicken for the domestic market will not be affected by the bird flu outbreak in the US and Europe. He said that although no bird flu cases were reported in the country, his ministry is constantly monitoring the situation from time to time. T7 Global's units have secured 2 letters of award worth approximately 100 million ringgit in total. Tanjong Offshore Services was given a LOA by Hibiscus Oil and Gas Malaysia, while T7 Intelligent Resources letter was from PTTEP Group of Companies. In a statement, the energy solution provider said the LOA with PTTEP entails the provision of headhunting and recruitment services, while the second letter from Hibiscus includes the provision of facility decommissioning services for the South Angsi Alpha. T7 Global Group CEO Tan Kay Zuin says that since fully acquiring T7IR in 2021, the group has secured multiple manpower contracts from similar energy producers. He adds that the Hibiscus Award marks an important milestone for the company to execute offshore facility decommissioning projects of such scale. Tan says over the next few years, the group will be on the lookout for more environmental, social and governance-related projects in the region. The group is expecting these 2 projects to contribute positively towards T7 Global's earnings and net assets for the next 2 years. The draft amendment to the Personal Data Protection Act 2010 to curb personal data breaches is expected to be presented in Parliament before the end of this year. Communications and Digital Minister Fahmi Fadzil said the Personal Data Protection Department is currently looking at several improvements to the amendment prepared by the previous government before it is extended to the Attorney General's chambers. He told Bernama that his ministry is looking at several additions and new aspects that he says are reasonable and applicable, which can be included. Fahmi said the amendments will also look into mandatory notification of companies or data holders to the department in the event of a data breach. He adds that the amount of fines or penalties against data user companies found to be misusing data should also be increased to the maximum level. Fahmi expressed disappointment that since 2017, the average amount of fines or penalties imposed on about 25 companies involved in data leaks only averaged out at around 24,000 ringgit per company. Meanwhile, he says his ministry is also planning to elevate the department as a statutory body to ensure it has enough resources to combat the issue of personal data leaks. On cyber scams, Fahmi says the ministry is constantly looking for avenues to curb the menace, including discussions with telecommunications service providers. He adds that measures to enhance digital literacy among users will also continue to be implemented to help raise public awareness of cyber fraud. Yinson Holdings said the contract for the operations of a floating production and storage and offloading asset for the Agogo Integrated West Hub and Development Project in Angola has been extended up to February 20th. The group's indirect wholly owned unit, Yinson Azalea Production, has inked an agreement with Eni Angola for the extension, Yinson said in a BOS filing. The initial 60-day agreement with an aggregate value of $218 million was signed on December 2nd, 2022 to commence preliminary works. Save for the extension of the tenure, the terms under the extension and value of the contract remain unchanged according to Yinson. Eni is the largest independent equity producer of oil and gas in Angola and is owned by Azul Energy, a 50-50 joint venture between BP and Eni. Yinson's shares closed at 2 ringgit 70 on Wednesday, up 6 cents or 2.27%, giving it a market capitalization of 8.24 billion ringgit.